Ladies and gentlemen, it is the 29th of December, and we all know what that means. Yes, that's right, it means Simulation of Steam, because there's a bloody lot of simulators today. The sale's not too bad, there's a couple of good deals, and I'm going to get the ones which I consider to be the best out of the way first, and then we're going to tackle the more obscure titles. Let's go with obscure. So I think probably the best one to start with would be Splinter Cell Blacklist, which I've already covered on the channel previously. It's going to cost you $3.74, that's pounds, or $7.49 in dollars. So either us Brits get a good deal, or Americans not so much. So whichever way, pretty solid stealth title, particularly if you've just played Ground Zeroes and you're waiting for something else. The game would be better served if you kind of know the Splinter Cell universe, to be totally honest. But the graphics are fairly solid. They're not quite on up to par with the next generation, if you will, but they're certainly reasonably solid. Mission structure is pretty good. This is pretty good stealth mechanics. I actually really like the stealth mechanics of the latest Splinter Cell games. Not really anything bad to say about it. If I had one slight niggle, I'm not quite sure I like the hub-based mission structure early on. But that's about it. Anyway, definitely a solid title. Moving forward, I suppose we might as well start ourselves with Wolfenstein, The New Order. 66% off, which means it's $11.89, or it's $20.39. So, pretty much the discrepancy in pricing that one would expect. Not bad, not particularly great, not bad either, I suppose. So, what would be the best way to describe this? Well, it is Wolfenstein, pretty much. Oh, just for your FYI, it's also available on GreenManGaming for $17.50, just in case you happen to miss this deal somehow or another. And you can get 20% extra off, but that's still not really worth it. So you're still better off to get the Steam version. But anyway, I digress. So, Wolfenstein The New Order is primarily single-player focused. The basic premise, of course, is that you're kind of playing through an alternate version of history. And for the most part, it plays pretty well. Even on consoles, it manages 60 FPS, so the engine's actually fairly well optimized. The graphics are pretty nice. It does have a couple of annoyances, primarily the way that you have to keep picking up weapons can be a bit annoying. You know, keep pressing the same button does keep the action a little slower than what you'd expect at points. But the gunplay is quite fun. It doesn't take itself super duper seriously, but the narration is fairly solid. I actually quite like it. I don't really have anything bad to say about this game. It's definitely one of the more solid titles of this genre that I've played in a while. And the fact it's single-player focused, rather than a single-player shitty campaign tacked onto multiplayer shitty campaigns, is a nice thing. So yes, very good. Nothing bad at all. Speaking of nothing bad at all, $2.74 will buy you a rather fantastic game. That will be Don't Starve. Then again, it would also buy you it if you're paying in US dollars for $3.74 as well. Don't Starve is... I've described this many times. It's been on sale billions of times at the moment. It's also the Reign of Giants and various other pieces of DLC, which I won't go into because I'll be here until Christmas explaining them all. The basic premise is you are, at the very start, trapped in the wilderness. You are alone. Unless you're playing with others. You are basically alone in the wilderness with giant spiders, monsters, and various other scary things that don't like you much. You must pretty much survive. And that goes through everything that you would expect survival to entail. So, for the most part, that would be gathering resources, setting a fire, not wandering into the dark, and so on and so forth. It does have a slight Tim Burton-esque type of survival element to it, and by which I mean there are Tim Burton-esque artwork, but there's also Tim Burton-esque type of monsters. So it's not survival as in, you know, 100% strict logical sense. There are some rather odd monsters which will start attacking you at points, but I quite like the game. It's an exercise in A, luck, B, common sense, and C, to be honest with you, a bit of bravery. Because this isn't a game where necessarily you're going to prosper early on. you're going to have to take some risks and maybe hurt yourselves, or probably risk even starvation to be able to kind of deal with what you need to deal with. So I quite like it. It's basically a risk assessment in some ways. Speaking of risk assessment, Left 4 Dead 2. So this one is going to cost you $4.99, or if you're paying in Great British pounds, $3.74. Now, what is there to say about Left 4 Dead that's not been said? I don't even know how many times. Now, GreenManGaming happen to have and once again, obviously I'm not getting kickbacks for any of this, but GreenMan do happen to have a complete Valve pack for 75% off, which means it's $12.49. Now, you do have that option on Steam. There is a complete Valve pack, but ironically it's more expensive. So you can pick up, and by the way, $12.49 was Great British pound prices. So you could pick up $12.49's worth of the Valve pack from GreenManGaming. I believe 20% off rule applies, which gives you all the Counter-Strikes, Deathmatch Classic, Half-Life 2, Blue Shift, Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, blah 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 blah. Or you could just pick this one up, which is totally up to you. Left 4 Dead 2 is primarily co-op focused. There is a 4-pack of this. Now, I have no real qualms of recommending the game. My slight concern for you would be that if you're just going to be playing in public and you're just kind of jump in and that's where you want to spend most of your time, you're going to be having less fun because everyone's going to know what to do and you're going to be like, help me, where is my medicine? I am confused and lost. Now, it's not to say you can't play the game single player, you can, or better still, play it with your friend, buddy, and chums. That would be the preferable way to play the game anyway. The Stanley Parable, $2.99. That's £1, or in dollars, $4.49. Fairly accurate and rather odd number, but still. This game has been the source of a lot of controversy in the gaming world. Not because it's bad, not because it contains violence or anything like that, simply because people are not sure how to interpret it. There's basically a lot of discussion of, hey, is this a game? Or is this a simulation? Is this a what? Regardless, it's probably an experience. Let's go with experience at the very least. You are probably gonna be a bit weirded out with the Stanley Parable. It's just over a year old at the moment, and it scores pretty well. The best way of putting this is that it's an exploration game. The game even calls itself that. You are following a story, but you're kind of not. So in other words, it's a game about decisions and exploration. My advice to you would be the following. If you are a gamer that likes exploring, that likes heavy narration, that likes to kind of understand the story on their own merit, on their own back, you're gonna like this game. As well as if you like, say, to kind of play something a bit different, a little bit thought-inspiring. On the other hand, if you are someone who wants the story and kind of wants to play a game almost like a novel in some respects, this may not be for you. Because this game is very much in the vein of you're going to make of this how you put into it. And I'm not sure if I'm making sense. Hopefully I do. At the very least, I would recommend looking at a couple of videos of this one. I've heard everyone say this is a work of genius, all the way down to this shouldn't be called a video game, to this is the most boring thing that I've ever played, to it was pretty good. So this one is probably one of the more divisive titles. Anyway, I digress. Men of War Assault Squad. That would be our next title. This is going to cost you $8.74. Or if you're going to be paying in Great British pounds, you're going to be coughing up a rather okay, I suppose, for currency conversion's sake, $6.24. This is an RTS which has received fairly reasonable critical acclaim. However, it's not to say that there aren't some voices of discontent. As I said, it is a fairly traditional RTS. It does have a couple of issues. As far as I understand, it does not have a tutorial mode, which could definitely be a bit of a problem. I guess it kind of depends on your familiarity with RTSs. And additionally, there are some problems with, say, the odd model here and there. My experience of this game is very limited. I haven't personally played it. I have knowledge of a couple of people who have played it, and they said it was okay. They didn't say it was anything genre-defining or anything like that. So for the price, you might want to give it a shot. At the very least, look at some videos, that type of thing. Can't really say much myself. At least it doesn't require anything particularly strenuous to run. You can actually run this on a very low-end dual core, or even a fairly reasonable single core. Now, I guess we're kind of in the thick of things. Construction Simulator 2015. So this title is going to cost you $20.99, or is going to cost you $12.99, depending on your currency. What is there to say about this when it's construction simulator? You're simulating that you are constructing stuff. I've heard mixed things about it. Some people absolutely love it, some people hate it. I've heard there are some bugs, but how much interest you have in this one, I guess, depends on your mentality. Personally, not my thing. Even the Steam reviews are fairly mixed. And the same could also be said for Farming Simulator, which is currently going for $20.09, or for $16.74. Farming Simulator obviously pretty much does what it says on the tin. I'll be totally and utterly honest, I cannot bring myself to play games like this. It's pretty much what you'd expect. There's no real need for me to explain this one. You are harvesting fields or doing other bits and bobs that you would expect a farmer to do. I'm not totally sure of who's going to be really kind of the target audience and really enjoying this. I mean, I'm just kind of clicking through the pictures, and aesthetically it doesn't look too bad in terms of the graphics, but that's about it. So if it appeals to you, then go for it. I guess it's a price off. But other than that, I can't really say whether it's a good game or not, because personally, I have no interest in it, so it's going to be far too biased. Battle Block Theatre will round off our main deals for today. $1.49 if you're paying in dollars, or if you're paying in pounds, it's going to cost you a fairly exact £1.09. There's not much to say other than this is probably one of the better titles for the day. It's a little old in that it was come out May this year, or 2014 anyway, if you happen to be watching this in, say, next year, in just a couple of days' time. But it has definitely a fairly cutesy art style. I quite like it. Anyway, well, cutesy is a bit of a strong word. It can be somewhat disturbing at points. And is a single-player or co-op orientated title, which is actually really cool because it does support local co-op. It's quite fun. It also supports user-creatable levels as well, which is definitely a good thing, at least in my personal opinion. And so you're probably going to be wanting to try this one out for the price, as particularly if you're a fan of the traditional titles like Adventures and Indie and all of that kind of gubbins. This is a pretty solid game. Not really anything more to say about it, really. We're going to be blasting through rather rapidly the deals of the day, as well as the community choices. I guess we might as well go with the new deals, because we've got a couple, which I know about anyway. The first would be Serious Sam 3. Very solid first-person shooter. Doesn't take itself too seriously. It's very much in the old style, like kind of Duke Nukem thing. It has a lot of graphical options on the PC. In fact, some would argue almost too many for the average user. I'm pretty sure at one point it's going to allow you to configure if there's slices of bread on the counter. It's absolutely ridiculous. But as an actual game, it's actually quite nice. It's quite fun. It's fast. It's furious. And believe it or not, actually supports local co-op for a first-person shooter on the PC. That's pretty cool. I have to say, I'm quite happy with that. You've also got Half-Life 2. The other caveats that I mentioned earlier at the start of this video, whereas if you're going to pick this up with, say, Left 4 Dead 2, you might be better to go with the Valve Complete, which I said is on GreenManGaming for cheap. But there's not anything bad to say about Half-Life 2. Just go for it. It needs to be played. We also have Two Worlds 2, which is an okay game. I've heard some mixed things. I tried it briefly around a friend's, and I do mean briefly. I don't have anything particularly bad to say about it. It felt okay. The problem that you're going to have with this game is that there are a lot of other games which do the same thing, just maybe slightly better. And so that could be a bit of a problem. Just a bit of a problem. Yeah. Oh, and I was a complete chimp yesterday, and I believe I forgot to mention Divinity Original Sin, which is currently available as yesterday's deals. That's a pretty top game, and I'd highly recommend you check it out. On GreenManGaming, there's no real major changes. I'm just going to blast through this. As far as I'm aware, Amazon haven't really changed much of their stuff either. But GreenManGaming, the 24-hour stuff has changed. You've got Fallout 3 and New Vegas, both for $2.49. Pretty good price on both. Not really anything to say about them, because I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of their kind of post-apocalyptic Skyrims, I suppose is the best way you can describe them. Very much a sandbox. They can be completed rather rapidly if you know what you're doing, or they can be something to hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours theoretically of your life could quite literally dissolve into. There's also Murdered Soul Suspect, which isn't a bad concept, to be totally honest. The concept, however, doesn't necessarily the concept isn't necessarily living up to the actual reality, the realization. The basic premise is it's a supernatural detective title. You're basically trying to figure out how you were killed, why you were killed, and all of that stuff. It's not a terribly bad game. The graphics are a little bit older than what you'd expect, considering the rather recent release, and it didn't do too well commercially. Do you want to pick it up? Well, for £5, maybe. It's not a bad deal. As for everything else, as far as I'm aware, I'm just going to double check, but as far as I'm aware, Origin and all of those websites are pretty much doing the same deals. Which is a bit of a shame. What I'd ideally like to see is for them to do kind of like a killer deal every day, but they're not. So what you can do, for example, is pick up Crysis 3, and I've been through all of these dozens of times before, like Crysis 3 for like £5, so on. Not bad. The real crying shame, to be honest, out of all of the Origin titles is the Mass Effect trilogy. The main issue I have with it is that it's a really good piece of content, but it doesn't include all of the DLC, which in my opinion kind of sucks. But there you have it. Anyway, Humble Bundle, nothing. Get Games Go, most of those other websites aren't really doing anything that's kind of stuff to write home about. When I have to confess, from a very blunt perspective, to be honest, the Steam deals basically this whole Christmas have not been that impressive. Yesterday's were pretty good, as we went through yesterday, obviously. There were some really good titles, but it kind of goes from like, this is really quite nice to meh. Today's, we have got Splinter Cell, which is pretty good. Wolfenstein, pretty good. But, aside from that, a lot of the deals, in fact, all of these deals, as far as I'm aware, I believe Wolfenstein's been on a couple of times, Splinter Cell's definitely been on a couple of times. I picked it up for someone, actually, when it was cheap last time for exactly the same price. Don't Starve's been available several times for this price, and so on. So that's kind of my issue. It's not that necessarily the games are bad, it's just they're very repetitive. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.